All right, folks, it's time for our favorite podcast, Cut to the Chase. And that's what we're going to do today. I brought on Ruth Rizkalla from the Carlson Law Firm. How are you doing today, Ruth?
I'm good. How are you, Greg?
I'm very good. Thank you for asking. Ruth is a partner at the Carlson Law Firm, out hanging out in Los Angeles. How's Los Angeles, by the way? I know that we're cutting to the chase, but I mean,
Well, I live in Manhattan Beach. My office is in Manhattan Beach.
nice.
So right now it's probably like 68 degrees outside. Beautiful.
Uh,
I have no complaints, Greg.
all right, all right. If you do, you can let me know off the air, though. I do offer that service. All right. So Ruth is a mass tort master, 2 decades. She's been involved in lots of litigation, including some of the things that we actually do cover currently, like 3M. She's getting involved in the social media addiction adolescent issue that we're also going to bring her back a month from now. So if anybody has any questions they want me to ask for that podcast, definitely, now's the time to do it. Send it my YouTube channel, my Instagram page, whatever you want to do. All right, but you're the guest. You need to be doing the talking. Tylenol and autism. Pregnant ladies taking Tylenol, getting autism. Convince me that actually will tell us about the litigation, and convince me that Tylenol with pregnant ladies can cause autism. What do we know?
Okay, well, to convince you, Greg, first I'm gonna do an interpretive dance.
Okay,
Oh,
nice.
wait, no, okay, maybe that won't work so well
Yeah.
if people are kind of just listening in. Okay, so why don't I get to the facts of the case? Okay, so this litigation essentially deals with mothers or women who are pregnant, and they take acetaminophen, which we call APAP just to make it short, or Tylenol is the brand name. And they take this medication during pregnancy because they are told by doctors, and doctors are informed by the manufacturers that this is one of the, or not one of, the safest medication that a pregnant woman can take to relieve pain while pregnant. However, as it turns out, and it is, very true with a lot of these pharmaceutical type cases, the manufacturers they knew that there was a risk, and they put it on the market knowing absolutely that there is a causal link between taking APAP or acetaminophen or brand name Tylenol, they're all the same thing, while pregnant, and increasing the risk of your child having autism up to 4 times. So this is something that mothers don't know. This is something that a lot of doctors obviously don't know, because they wouldn't recommend that their pregnant patients take this if they understood there was a risk, right? So the risk is out there. The manufacturers are the ones who know. Nobody else knows, but people are beginning to know. And and we can trace this back, as far as let's see, like in 2013, there were 6 European studies that linked the consumption of APAP during pregnancy with autism. There were 6 studies back in 2013, so we're talking 10 years ago. Back in 2021, 2 years ago, there was a big consensus statement where we had 90 scientists of all kinds come out, sign their names saying, look, something's got to be done. There is a link between Tylenol consumption during pregnancy and autism. And as we all know, we look around today, autism numbers are through the roof. And I can give you the numbers if you want them, but it's just, we all need to figure out what are the causes. And Tylenol is absolutely one of the causes of not just the risk of autism during pregnancy, but just the numbers that we see in the general population today.
All right, I'm going to shoot 3 questions over to you. I always hear, oh, the manufacturers knew about the problems, blah, blah, blah. How do you know that they knew, and when did they know it? That's question 1. I know that's kind of a 2-part question. And who are these manufacturers? Are we talking Johnson & Johnson and the regular crew here? And I do want to hear about the numbers, the autism numbers. Give me like the picture, and where you're coming up with that information.
Sure. Okay, so your first question is okay, let me go back. You had three questions all at once. So I want to make sure I
Okay.
address all of
Who are
them.
the defendants? Who are the manufacturers?
Okay, so the defendants are at first Johnson and Johnson, but now what we have, and this is interesting within this litigation, we have now, if you ever go to a Target or a CVS or an Albertsons or whatever, you'll notice that there is a CVS brand acetaminophen. So we are suing these we call them retailer manufacturers, because they're not just selling Tylenol branded, from Johnson and Johnson or manufactured by Johnson and Johnson. They are selling their own brand, and so they're manufacturing their own brand. So the defendants in this case are Johnson and Johnson, because they're the original manufacturers of acetaminophen. But then you also have a whole slew of retailer manufacturers, and I believe there's something like 16. So it'd be like, I mean, you could kind of imagine you've got like Walmart brands, you've got Target brands, you've got all of those kinds of things. So we're suing them also.
All right. And question two was, you say I'm assuming Johnson and Johnson knew about the connection. How do you know, and how long have they known about it? And have they done anything about that?
Sure. Okay. So we will figure out through discovery how far back they've known. But what we know factually, and this is outside and before discovery, is that, in 2013, there were six studies in Europe that showed an association between taking Tylenol and while pregnant, of course, and and having your child have an increased risk. So so the manufacturers of APAP, they've known since at least 2013. And if they argue that those six studies, even though those six studies all showed an increased link, if they argue that, oh, those six studies aren't enough, well, guess what? In 2021, 90 scientists came together. They were so compelled. No one made them do this. They came together, put their names down, and said, look, there is a link. Somebody do something. We're putting our names down. We're putting our reputations down. Somebody do something. And yet nothing has been done. As of today, there is no warning label whatsoever on any APAP acetaminophen product out there. So nothing has been done by any of these manufacturers, whether we're talking about Johnson and Johnson or the retailer manufacturers.
Are these products under the FDA's regulatory powers, or?
They are, but you have to remember that, well, one, okay, there are two different things, and I don't want to get too technical, but all of these manufacturers, they all have the ability to change this label and add this warning without any FDA permission or intervention. However, they've chosen not to.
Yeah. And have they made any statements saying, there's no problem, there's no connection, we don't think the science holds up?
Right. So we will have our general causation experts come up, probably, we're thinking, in spring. And so that is going to be defendant's argument. And I think once we get past that hurdle, there's not going to be a whole lot more to show.
How many, how many people do you think have autism because of this? And let's talk about the numbers.
Sure.
So it sounds like there was a certain number of people with autism at some point. Now it's like escalated. I mean, Tylenol's been around for a long time.
Yes. Okay, so I'll just give you the rise from 2016 to 2018. There was a rise of 23% in diagnosed autism cases. And so we're talking about 8-year-olds who are now getting diagnosed with autism, and they're 8 by 2018. And so basically 2.3% of the 8-year-old population in the US as of 2018 has been diagnosed with ASD, with autism, autism spectrum disorder.
All right. And
so I mean, that's a big rise in 2 years.
That is. And so let's go back to like the CVS's of the world, the Walmarts. They're making their own version of Tylenol. I'm assuming Tylenol is not, the formula is not under patent protection at this point, and that enables CVS to basically copy the whole the whole formula to make their own version.
Right. And in doing so, they become strictly liable, just as the manufacturers do.
All right. And so you and your law firm have gotten involved in the litigation.
Yes, we have.
So tell us what the litigation is. Is this a class action? Is it mass torts? Is it both? Multi-district litigation? Well, let's get down to the fun stuff.
It's so much fun, Greg. Are you
It,
ready for this? It's like a
it
big
is.
party.
I can't take it anymore.
Okay,
How
so
else can I get the information, Ruth, if I don't bring you on the show? Put your feet to the fire. No, I'm kidding.
well, I mean, you could always give me a call,
And I
but
do, I
you're
do.
so fancy. You got to do everything via podcast, right?
Yeah.
So, I'll entertain you.
And I do like to share the information. So, all right,
Of course. And so do I. So do I.
all right.
Okay,
So go ahead.
so right now, our firm is involved in Tylenol as a multi-district litigation. You know, what that means is no matter where you live in the US, if you file a case in federal court, that case will automatically be transferred to the multi-district court judge. In this case, it is Denise Coate in the Southern District of New York. So that's where all the cases are. And the reason it is a mass tort instead of a class action is because in a class action, you can only sue for economic damages. Here, we're suing for the personal injuries of the children that are involved, the children who are diagnosed with autism, what it means in terms of their medical bills, and also what it means in terms of what their lives are going to be like and the kind of help that they'll need from the time they were born until who knows when, depending on the severity of their autism. So anytime you have a personal injury like that, it automatically becomes a mass tort and not a class action. A class action would be if we sued the makers of Tylenol for the cost of Tylenol itself because it's a defective product, for instance.
Gotcha.
So that's what we have here.
All right. So I'm a mother. My 10-year-old has autism. I just kind of always assumed that it was sort of just a natural, disorder that, some people get it, some people don't, and that there was really nothing I did wrong or what have you. At what point should a mother with a kid with autism even considering calling someone like you? I mean, is there like, did they, if they took it one time, is that bad when they were pregnant, or did they have to be taking it every day? Is there some kind of frequency level that you and your law firm sort of look for to separate the good cases from the not so good cases?
Sure. The way that I look at it, Greg, is every situation is different and every case is different. And so, so at the Carlson Law Firm, what we do is every client who calls in, we talk to them. It's a good at least 10, 15 minute, maybe a longer conversation. And especially with these cases, there are a lot of different confounding factors. Like, for instance, you may have taken Tylenol, and of course, we know that will increase the risk of your child having autism. But we'll ask questions like, well, did it run in the family? Things like that, because, we want to figure out if there is, if we're able to make the argument in front of a judge that, okay, this person took this drug, we know it's an increased risk, and we can absolutely eliminate all these other potential confounding factors. And we can do so via experts and studies that we have. If we're able to do that, then we will take your case. So I think any mother out there who has a child who is diagnosed with autism and they know that they took Tylenol, I think you should give our firm a call. And we'll let you know, okay, after we interview you, we'll say, look, you have a case because, or even you don't have a case because, but I don't know that any mother out there should make that call on her own. We want to help with that.
Yeah. So how many people are in the mass tort litigation?
I know we have over 100 cases filed so far. But our expectation, I imagine, and don't quote me on this, of course, because no one ever knows, but I do imagine it'll go into the hundreds of thousands very easily.
Yeah.
And and with these cases, because most states have minor tolling statutes. So, so what that means is your child could be 8 years old today, but your child can wait. If they wanted to, of course, they could wait until they are 18 before their statute of limitations starts to run, and then they can start thinking about filing their case. So this is, I mean, this is a case that's going to be ongoing for a very long period of time, because we have minors out there who are unaware that they even have a claim. And so when they turn 18, then they can start thinking about it, and then they have a limited amount of time to file their case in court and have their arguments heard.
Can their parents file it on their behalf before they're 18?
Absolutely. So yeah, so a parent's statute of limitations is different from a child's. There isn't minor tolling when it comes to a parent's claim. But I mean, I would suggest to any parent who's listening to this podcast now, you should reach out to a firm and see if you have a claim. And I'm not sure. I mean, every situation's different, but it seems to me like the wise choice would be to file your claim earlier rather than later.
Yeah. And the tolling, the minor tolling, is that a state law in California, or is that all over the country?
So minor tolling definitely exists in California, and I know it exists in most states too. And that, I mean, that's really just to protect very young folks. Like if someone is born today, for instance, and his or her mom took Tylenol while pregnant, 2 years later, that child, which would be 2025, is diagnosed with autism, that child will have an additional 16 years, because a 2-year-old kid can't file a claim.
Yes.
So that's the whole point behind it.
All right. So I'm not a specialist in autism. And I know that in a sense, this is like a personal injury case. Somebody gets injured, you file a lawsuit seeking monetary compensation for their losses and also for their future medical needs. You really never know how much that's going to cost, but you as an attorney basically make an assessment, and you maybe hire doctors and come up with a potential treatment plan. What is an 8-year-old boy or girl with autism? Is there a treatment plan? Can you get better, or is it management? What do you know? I know you're not a doctor, but you're knee deep in this. You got to know it.
Sure. So there's no cure. So we know that, but there are different kinds of therapies, and as far as autism goes, it is a spectrum. So every child is going to need different things, but you can get speech therapy, you can get therapists to kind of help you with social interactions, and then there are also physical injuries that come along if you are more severe on the spectrum, and so you'll need physical therapy. You'll need, I mean, there's so many services that you'll need as a result of making your life more livable, as someone who suffers and is diagnosed with autism.
I remember, I'm going to say maybe 10, 15 years ago, I'm a big basketball fan, Miami Heat. We had a center, Alonzo Mourning, and I think he was taking ibuprofen and, had to have his kidney removed or something like that. And I was stunned. I'm like, ibuprofen, aspirin, how to Tylenol. I always thought these were like the most safest products on the market. I'm laughing, but I mean, it's gotten to the point now where I have no faith in any product almost. It's like I go to CVS or whatever to get healthier, but I don't know, maybe the opposite is happening. I mean, what's going on? I mean, what's the active ingredient? Do we even know what part of the Tylenol is causing this issue?
Yeah, I mean, we do have more than one theory that we're trying to advance right now. But you're going to have to be patient with that, because I think that's something that we will argue and present to the court and to the general public, come spring when it's due.
All right. So the case is really just starting. When this thing that's going to happen in spring is essentially your experts are going to generate a report explaining all the science behind this and what they're relying on themselves, and then the opposition does the same, and then the judge makes a determination of whether to throw the case out altogether or to let the jury decide. Is that sort of the way that plays out?
Well, I mean, that is pretty close. And also I want to add really quickly, Greg. So we have now 26 studies that all show a causal link or an association between the use of or consumption, digestion, of APAP during pregnancy. So I mean, so that's what we're going to show,
Yeah.
come this spring. And we don't have a deadline yet. We're assuming it's going to be spring for these general reports. And yeah, and the judge will have to take a look at these. Defendants will make their arguments. I don't know exactly what they're going to say, but I think it's going to be along the lines of, oh, all of your studies are BS, and yeah, and they'll try to dice up the studies. That's my assumption. But yeah, but I'm thinking spring. We don't have a deadline, but that's around when this will all happen.
All right. Is there any like big name group behind any of these studies? Is there any big name scientists that maybe the public would even
Oh,
recognize?
who would the public know? I don't know. A lot of these epi studies are folks that I don't know that the general public will know. Like there is one epidemiologist, and I think for I keep saying the increase in risk is 4%, and so the study itself is I just know it as the G study, JI. So I think for folks kind of in the pharma world who have dealt with epidemiologists, they know that G is kind of a big name. But yeah, but I don't know that there would be any names that are recognizable to the general public.
Okay. All right. But as time goes on, and we're getting deeper and deeper into this, and I bring you back, maybe we talk about some of the, the people behind these studies, who they are. I'm kind of curious, are they, is it academia? Are they independent companies? Why are they doing these studies in the first place? We can save that for another show as we get closer to that big spring or summer moment when we have to lay your cards down on the table, and the judge will decide at that point whether the cases go forward or not. So let me ask you, is there anything I missed? Is there anything you think you would like the audience to know about this?
What do I want what would I want the audience to know? I mean, I think it is really important for any mother, any father out there, or even any person who is listening to this podcast. If you think that you have a case, you've got to go out there and do something about it. Make sure that your voice is heard, because you were injured unfairly, potentially. If you are a person who can be a plaintiff in this lawsuit, you should go out and make sure your voice is heard. And not only that, but you should make sure that once your voice is heard, that you could be, I mean, you're speaking up not just for yourself, you're speaking up for a whole class of people that these manufacturers ignored when they didn't put out the warning labels, and they continued to ignore these studies. So, so like everything else in life, if you want justice, stand up and go get it.
There you go. So, and I think this is sort of, and it sounds like a little bit of an easy fix for the future. I mean, you put the label on, so Johnson & Johnson can't pick up the sales to pregnant women. I don't know how many people that use Tylenol are pregnant. I didn't even really associate Tylenol use with someone who's pregnant, although I guess it does make sense. But I mean, it's not the end of the product.
Yeah, no, it's not the end of the product. And so if you think about it from that angle, why can't they just put out a warning and say, look, and it could, I mean, it could read 100 different ways, right? And this is kind of just me opining, but it could say, hey, if you're pregnant, there has been an argument that there is a risk. So you decide, and some studies might cite it, whatever. I mean, they could make this warning label. I guess they should make it correct.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. But the point is, they've made no attempt whatsoever. And I can tell you this on top of that, so I have 3 kids, and I'm pretty sure I took Tylenol in at least one of my pregnancies. And the reason I did was because I was told it's the safest thing out there for pregnant women during pregnancy if they're experiencing pain.
Wow, that's terrible. All right, well, listen, Ruth, hopefully your child and your children, are not suffering from this kind of disorder. I know it's really sweeping the country. A lot of parents are scratching their head. What are they going to do? And then the kids, and then, growing up with it, and, not fitting in and all that. It's just really, it's a horror show. And I thank you for coming on and talking about this and being open about all this. I told you I was not going to be easy with you. You're like, Gregg, please give me softball questions. No, I'm kidding. But I was tough, like, prove it.
Oh yeah,
My
yeah.
audience wants, they don't want to believe everything that I'm saying. So,
We've got the proof. The proof is easy.
all right. So that will do it for this episode of Cut Through the Chase. Remember, Ruth is coming back in a month, to talk about the social media addiction lawsuit that's going on, that she's very involved in. So if you have questions that you want me to ask her, you know how to find me. Type it out. Greg, ask her this, whatever you want to do. You can handwrite it and fax it like an old person does or whatever. I don't know, but we'll get it done. All right. So that'll do it for this episode of Cut to the Chase. Ruth, go get them. All right.
Will do. Good talking with you, Greg.
All right.